remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for coming. Actually, I don't see any attendees currently in the meeting. So we'll go ahead and go forward, and people can join in. And we'll have the presentation. It'll be a recording of it as well. So that'll be uploaded and people can look at it later if they weren't able to make it tonight. So I'll go ahead. So good evening. This is the second neighborhood meeting to discuss the official the application for Harris Park Block 43 senior housing. It's the first neighborhood meeting for the official development plan. My name is Nathan Lawrence, senior planner with the City of Westminster Community Development Department. Before I begin, I want to go over some general etiquette for tonight's virtual meeting so we can efficiently capture your feedback. Please keep your questions and comments courteous and note that they'll be read aloud to the audience along with your name. Also, please keep questions and comments relevant to tonight's application. If you have other questions or concerns, please email planning@cityofwestminster.us and a staff member will get back to you. And finally, tonight's meeting is being recorded and will be posted on the city's website. And I will email all of the meeting attendees a link after tonight's meeting. So I'll begin tonight by providing some background on the applicant's proposal, and we'll outline the steps as we move through the development review process. The applicant team will then present the proposed site design features, building program, and architectural details. In total, these presentations should last no more than 30 minutes. After which, the remainder of the meeting will be devoted to answering questions and recording your feedback. We'll be gathering your comments and questions tonight using the chat box function, which you should see on your screen. So feel free to begin typing in questions as we go through the presentation. And if you would like to speak, please type that into the chat box. After we've heard from everybody, we'll shift in between people that want to speak and those who and questions that are asked in the chat box. So any questions that are not addressed during our meeting time will be posted on the development project status webpage. And again, I'll email you that at the end of the meeting. So I'll begin with the presentation with orienting everybody to the site. The Harris Park Senior Apartments site is shown here on red on your screen. It's located on the southwest corner of 73rd Avenue and Lowell Boulevard. It's located directly north of the Penguin Building, south across 73rd Avenue from the CRHDC headquarters, and it's comprised of 3 parcels. To give you some background on the history of this development application, City Council voted to approve the rezoning to planned unit development, or PUD, along with the preliminary development plan, or PDP, on November 23rd, 2020. The rezoning allowed for the creation of a traditional mixed-use neighborhood development by permitting flexibility in the creation of unique development regulations that are designed to fit within the unique character of the neighborhood. The approved PDP acted as the vehicle for these custom development regulations, which included defining the development density, building setbacks, streetscape dimensions, building height, and parking regulations. Also, the PDP established the allowable land uses on the site, which include senior housing in addition to other residential and commercial uses. Here you see a diagram of the development review process to show you where we have been and where we are headed. The rezoning and PDP application was submitted early last year, and a neighborhood meeting was held on March of 2020 to review those applications with the community. That application was then reviewed by city staff before being brought to Planning Commission and ultimately being approved by City Council. We are now at the official development plan stage, or ODP, stage of review. The ODP serves as the regulatory document for the specific details of the site and building design and forms the basis of approval of construction documents. City staff has completed review of the first submittal of the ODP, bringing us to tonight's neighborhood meeting. After tonight, the applicant will incorporate your feedback into the ODP and resubmit to staff for review. Staff will be able to administratively approve the ODP once all city standards and requirements are met. This in turn will allow the applicant to submit civil construction drawings and a building permit set for review. Once all code requirements are met, those plan sets can be approved and construction may begin. As mentioned, regulations related to land use and the core development regulations such as setbacks and development density have already been established on the approved PDP. Tonight, we are looking for your input on items directly related to the ODP, which we'll dive into a higher grain of detail. So items that we want your feedback on include pedestrian circulation, streetscape and landscape design, site drainage and lighting, architectural design, and building materials. That is why we are here tonight, is to gather your feedback on these items so we can improve the project and ensure that it fits in well with the neighborhood context. So now I'll turn the presentation over to Molly Taylor, housing coordinator with the city's economic development department. She'll give you a brief overview of the project timeline and introduce the project team. Molly?
Thank you, Nathan, and thank you, community members and neighbors who have either signed up to participate tonight or who view us and take a look at this video in the near future. I want to briefly update you all on the status of the cleanup for the parcel we're discussing for the Harris Park Senior Apartments. The city has recently entered into a contract with a certified abatement remediation abatement, asbestos abatement contractor. Say that 5 times fast. And that group will be coming to work in May. We expect that the asbestos abatement and the demolition of the buildings on site will take approximately 6 to 8 weeks. So we look forward to that being completed by the end of June. At that time, once the demo is complete, the city's contractor will perform soils testing and make a plan for any added soil remediation that may be needed. All of this information regarding the site cleanup is covered in the city's voluntary cleanup plan, and that can be found at the Economic Development Department website on the CDBG page. If you go to the center of the page and click on the accordion for 73rd, West 73rd and Lowell, you will find the VCUP and all of the filings pertinent to this site's cleanup. Additionally, the project manager for this cleanup's phone number and name are on the signage located at the site, and additional information about those links can be found on the project page associated with this presentation. With that, I'm going to move on to introductions and tell you who is coming after me. So tonight we are going to hear from what we call the Harris Park Senior Apartments Project team. And the lead of that team is Arturo Alvarado, and he is the Executive Director of CRHDC. And he's going to quickly talk a little bit about their role and their vision for this. And then Young Cho, who is the principal in charge of Studio Completiva, the architect team working on this, will jump in. And from there, our project manager, Christopher Keast from Studio Completiva, will take it over and walk through the ODP plans in their current state with all of you. So we look forward to your questions and comments, and I'm going to turn it over to Arturo.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you, Nathan and Molly. I'm excited to have the opportunity to introduce CRHDC and our intent to develop senior affordable housing in Westminster. At CRHDC, we believe in a Colorado where every community is a place of opportunity with safe, affordable, and attainable housing for all. CRHDC is a nonprofit organization with an extensive history of developing high-quality housing across the state of Colorado. CRHDC has been proud to call Westminster and specifically the Harris Park community home for the past 27 years. We are delighted to have the opportunity to develop senior housing in our own backyard, right across the street from our office at 73rd and Lowell. Next slide, please. So we currently own and manage 5 senior affordable rental housing apartments in the state. We pride ourselves in building housing that fits the local community and housing our residents are proud to call home. Here is Lakota Ridge Senior Apartments. in Newcastle, Colorado. Next slide, please. A number of our developments have received state and national awards for design and use. Casas de Rio Grande Senior Affordable Housing in Del Norte, Colorado is one of those. It's pictured here. Next slide, please. And here's another senior property utilizing a different design and flow, Newcastle Senior Housing. CRCC acts as the management team for all of our properties. We have years of experience in property management and pride ourselves on ensuring our properties remain high performing for residents and the community. We are extremely happy to have Studio Completiva as our architect and partners to develop Harris Park Senior Apartments. And it's my pleasure to hand the presentation over to Young Cho to introduce Studio Completiva.
Thank you, Arturo. My name is Young Cho. I'm an architect and a planner. I'm principal and founder of Studio Completiva. Studio Completiva is a mission-based firm founded here in Denver, Colorado. And we've been in business for about 25 years. And we've been very lucky to work with some very dedicated and committed clients over the years to make social impact. We focus on social equity and community building. And we're very excited to be part of this team and to bring about change on this site. We really see ourselves in the role being facilitators to bring about transition and positive impact. Could we go to the next slide, please? And what we're sort of really excited about is that we have this terrific context. We have existing buildings that have character. We have neighborhood that is emerging. And I believe that we can work together to create an inspired district. We really see this project as a catalyst, a gateway component that begins to really bring about change and enrich Lowell Boulevard and 73rd Avenue. As you can see that the texture is rich, the material is rich, and we hope to build upon what is existing and really bring about the best that is to be found there. Next, please. As Arturo and Molly has previously described, we're talking about a senior independent living development. And we believe that creating senior housing, affordable senior housing, is vital to a vibrant community. This is an independent living senior housing, and it's really designed for active, engaged, and connected seniors. But we're designing the building in such a way that their independence is prioritized and it can really be lengthened, so that a lot of thought is given to aging in place and making sure that the building engages the community. I'm going to turn this over to Christopher Keast, who is the project manager on the project, to talk about in some more detail aspects of this development. Christopher?
Thank you, Young. Hello, everyone. My name is Christopher Keast. I'm with Studio Completiva, and I'm the project manager for Harris Park. I'll be telling you the story of our project while sharing our site plan, landscape plan, elevations, and 3D renderings with you. Next slide, please. Our project is located on the southwest corner of Lowell Boulevard and 73rd Street. Our client, CRHTC, has offices located directly across the street to the north. The Penguin Building is located adjacent to the south. And the Hidden Lake High School and playing field is located across the street to the east. Next slide, please. Public automobile access consists of 4 on-street parking spaces located along Lowell Boulevard. Our residential parking area is accessed via the alley on the west side of the property. There are 17 total spaces provided, of which 2 are designated as ADA accessible. Next slide, please. From Lowell Boulevard, pedestrians travel north to the corner before turning west along 73rd. From here, pedestrians may access our site via a courtyard composed of paving and landscaping elements. There are multiple avenues of circulation through our site via gardens and covered exterior corridors. An 8-foot tall wood fence defines the southern boundary of the property, while a 4-foot tall fence helps define the garden off the alley. Next slide, please. The project consists of 2 stories of 1-bedroom units along Lowell Boulevard, a raised ceiling community room on the corner with 3 1-bedroom units above, and a separate 2-story building with 2-bedroom units to the west that help define a small lawn garden area in the crook of the buildings. This configuration provides maximum natural daylight to our landscaped areas. Residential units on the first level are provided with dual entries. Units along Lowell Boulevard provide a walk-up brownstone style entry with additional more private entries facing the interior courtyard. The community room has 2 entries, one facing 73rd Street and one on the west side of the space opening into our hardscaped courtyard. The 2-bedroom units on the west have entries opening towards the interior lawn garden, as well as entries opening onto the semi-public garden to the west, providing eyes on the alley and sidewalk for increased public safety. Next slide, please. Our landscape plan incorporates a series of trees and planters along Lowell Boulevard, buffeting pedestrians from vehicular traffic, while taking on the same rhythm and spacing as the plantings in front of CRHDC's offices to the north. The small lawn garden in the center has been designed as a tranquil Zen-like space for residents to pause and enjoy the quietude, while the quad to the south is more of a gathering space, with benches facing towards each other. Trees and plantings define a buffer space between the parking area and the covered unit entries. The semi-public garden to the west along the alley sidewalk is meant as an amenity to both our residents and to the community. Tree-shaded benches provide respite within the southwest-facing lawn, with more trees located along the alley. A rain garden and planting area behind the benches separate the lawn from the adjacent first-level entries. XL will bury 2 existing power lines on the east side of the alley. These power poles also currently serve as light poles lighting the alley. Our project will bring back additional lighting in the garden and parking areas to ensure the alley is safely illuminated. Our transformer is located along the alley. The city and our civil engineers have worked together to solve our water quality requirements. Most of the precipitation falling on the main building will be routed to a series of garden beds along Lowell Boulevard before joining the city's stormwater system, while the rest will funnel into a small interior garden before joining the stormwater inlet at the northwest corner of our site. The planting area and rain garden in the semi-public garden will accommodate all the precipitation falling on our 2-bedroom units. These also feed into the stormwater inlet at the northwest corner of the site. Next slide, please. Our maximum allowable building height is 30 feet. At its highest point, at the corner of Lowell and 73rd, our building is roughly 27 feet tall. And now we'll show you some renderings. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial view of our site looking north. Next slide, please. Here's the corner of Lowell and 73rd looking southwest. The community room is bathed in natural light. Passersby are given a view of goings-on within. The entry on the corner is generous and welcoming, while activating and energizing the corner. Brick was chosen for its enduring qualities, its sense of stability and permanence. The metal and glass facade harken back to more traditional street frontages, while the simple massing and clean lines give it a contemporary touch. Next slide, please. This one is titled incorrectly. It's actually looking southeast. This is a view from 73rd. The alley is on the right. You can see the welcoming gesture of the public garden and landscape provide from the street. Clear sight lines to and from the alley help promote safety for pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Next slide, please. Our second floor units are served by 2 covered stairs and 1 elevator. While the roof line along Lowell and the community room are horizontal, matching CRHCC's offices, the gable roof lines at our 2-bedroom units help soften and integrate the project into the neighborhood along 73rd. Next slide, please. Here's a view from the south looking towards the Zen Garden. Next slide, please. Here's a view of the residences along Lowell Boulevard. Metal awnings over recessed entries provide shelter and create depth within the facade. A subtle play of brick patterning, inset windows, and simple lines give a sense of both order and playfulness to the architectural detailing. These folks have wonderful views of the fields to the east, and more eyes on the street plays well here too. Next slide, please. And here we are back at the corner of our 2,000 square foot community room, which has been designed as both an anchor for the project as well as a gateway to the growing community arts district. We're proud to be working alongside CRHDC with their commitment to community building and are looking forward to providing a valuable asset to both existing and future residents of your neighborhood. We welcome your feedback and thank you for your time this evening.
Great, thank you, Chris. We're going to switch into our question and comment section. Dino, you're actually the only one, I believe, in the meeting tonight. And thank you for commenting, you know, that it's a complete reconfiguration from a year ago. I think it has some of the same elements, you know, the same kind of strength on Lowell, but yeah, it definitely evolved quite a bit, and I think very positively. If there, honestly, Dino, if you have anything that you'd like to say or anything like that, we'd be happy to unmute you for any comments, you being the only attendee tonight. So if you would like that, just go ahead and type into the chat box. Sure. Okay, great. Jennifer, can you unmute Mr. Bonte?
Okay, Dino, you should be able to unmute and be able to speak. Try one more time, Dino.
I think you actually had it, Dino. We saw you on. Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I'm sorry I'm late. I was dealing with a homeless issue. I have to say, from where we were a year ago, I'm really quite pleased at the changed plan. It looks to me like through all the various meetings, delays, pandemics, etc., Arturo, you and your team and the people at Studio Completiva seem to listen to all the concerns. I heard elevator, which I know was a concern of Debbie Teeter. There were major concerns about these courtyards opening right at the alley. Still hesitant about, you know, that kind of a back alley opening just because of some of what I see in that alley all day long. But definitely some major changes. I guess my question becomes, what are you going to do with that alley overall? I know it's not necessarily, this project only addresses a small part of it.
Yeah, Dino, we do have Heath Klein and Michael Wright on the line. So if either of them wants to jump in and kind of talk about, I think, there were, you've made some requests for, what's going on with the sort of power lines back there and whatnot. So they can probably give you an update on that. But you are correct that this project will widen the alley along its extent to bring it up to our city standards. But of course, it only is going to be improved for that section, as well as the undergrounding of the feeder lines is also going to occur, but not for the entire extent. But Michael or Heath, do you want to jump in and fill in some more information on the rest of the alley?
Yeah, thank you, Nathan. This is Heath Klein, City of Westminster Transportation Engineer. And thank you, Dino, for asking about the alley. We are looking at, with this project, we're going to kind of assess the existing structural stability of the alley and whether or not it makes sense to do some sort of resurfacing in addition to the widening to ensure that we have 20 feet of asphalt so that two vehicles can safely pass from 73rd down and into the parking lot of this development. And with that, the city will continue to just monitor what's happening in the alley. And if there's additional degradation of the alley, we will start to put this onto our roadway rehab. And as Nathan mentioned, this project will be placing the overhead along their western property frontage underground. Unfortunately, we were not able to use the Excel 1% funds to underground all of the overhead along the alley because there are so many homes and businesses that get their services from overhead from those lines. And the 1% fund cannot be used to do the secondary services. It is only for main lines of the utility. So that is where the decision had been made not to get that underground at this point in time.
I'm going to tell you that's disappointing. And let me tell you why. How long you haven't been with the city long enough to see all the various projects. My concern remains with the utilities. You're gonna essentially underground from 73rd South to the north side of the Penguin Building, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Well, rewind 25 years ago when the city did their 72nd Avenue upgrades. The city underground in the alley and then stopped at the north side of the 7-Eleven by their dumpster, essentially. You're going to essentially have a spot now from the north side of the Penguin Building south to the north side of the 7-Eleven that's not underground. The problem becomes, and I understand the 1% fund and blah, 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 but the problem becomes you've improved on both ends. Some of the transformers, et cetera, on the remaining part are older than all of us. And they fail regularly, but what they tie to, not only my businesses and our tenants in our center, but it ties to the United States Post Office, 3 schools, and several other businesses. It's very bizarre, but typically when it does go out, it's only 7 homes, but you take out a good deal of community infrastructure. So it actually, because it doesn't affect like 2,000 homes, becomes a low priority for repair. It's not uncommon for the post office to go down for days. When that happens, unfortunately us as well, but the problem really then becomes you have lines that feed in so many different directions that come right to that point. you could get knocked out in one power hiccup and your neighbor is fine. And the next time it hits the same spot and it reverses it. It just needs finished. And I don't know if there's a way with other city funds that could be done. Having spent too much of my life in that alley, today is a good example. If using an anchor project like this, there aren't considerations given to the rest of the pipeline there. My concern is just, it's not so much the alley, it's not even so much the structural integrity of the pavement. People are just batshit crazy. I opened my back door today to meet a delivery truck who, new driver, he was lost, guided him to where he needed to be. I almost got hit twice in 2 minutes without ever going into the alley. People blow that stop sign all day long. I've been hit there before. The parking lot north of Electric City, that's actually a city-owned parking lot. We don't want to see it go either. Those are my concerns. And the high volume of traffic that goes through through the alley, I'm happy actually to see that the apartments that are being built have been moved to the east and will front Lowell. I think it'll give a better street view. I think it'll give better curb appeal. And I think having the parking in the back makes more sense. And quite frankly, I think it's safer for the residents to have that separation from their front door in the alley. It's just crazy back there. That's my concern.
Thank you, Dino. I will bring up the concern and see what we can do about the rest of the overhead utilities to address that issue. Because I do know that the city would have to identify some capital improvement funding to do the secondary services. So I will bring that up to the city engineer and see, as we move forward towards another budget cycle for CIP projects, to see if we can't bring that forward. And yeah, I hear you on the volume of traffic, and we will, any kind of input, I will take it into consideration to see if we can make that a little bit safer. I hate to hear that you were almost struck by vehicles nearly twice today.
I mean, it's normal. I'm used to it. I yell at them anymore. But I mean, somebody's going to get seriously hurt back there. I don't know if you know Eric that owns Electric City. Sometimes when he goes out back to have his cigarette break, he just shakes his head laughing. Even he was yelling at a car the other day as it came flying out of the 7-Eleven and blasted through the stop sign. You can put up all the safety measures and safety devices in the world. People are going to do what they want to do. Part of what would ease that challenge, though, would be looking at working with the post office to reconfigure the access to those mailboxes. They're just. So today, one of the ladies that came, she hit the gas, appeared to be about 80 years old, hit the gas, come flying through the alley from the 7-Eleven, can barely see over the wheel, probably shouldn't have a license. California stops at the stop sign, then goes flying up and makes a U-turn through Penny's parking it on the garage side of her Penguin building there to whip around to drop her letter into the mailbox. And then I'm not sure where she wound up exiting. I'm not sure she is either. But she either then came flying around back heading southbound and then exited eastbound through the parking lot there to Lowell, or she made another circle around and continued northbound through the alley. When you start introducing something we haven't seen back there for many, many years, and that's residences and seniors at that, there is a concern in my mind that when you're dealing with people driving like that who are going to do like water and follow the path of least resistance to get to a mailbox or whatever, somebody's going to get hurt. I just would encourage you guys to do something with traffic calming devices. Doesn't matter how much you widen it. Something to make it so that whatever reason people are going into that alley and exiting that alley, they're doing so in a more orderly fashion, because it's just the Wild West back there.
Thank you, Dino. I definitely will take this into consideration and see what we can do and reach out to the post office and see if there is a new way that we can reconfigure that lot there and the drop-off boxes to make it more conducive and safer for everybody using the alley. So I appreciate you bringing this up to my attention. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dino, this is Michael Wright. Thanks for joining our meeting. As far as the undergrounding part of undergrounding down south, this development is, you have to pretty much rewire all those buildings because they won't be able to take in the new wiring system when you underground it. So that's one of the hurdles we're having to deal with is how do you get the electric lines into the buildings that are south of here? So so that's something we're looking into.
And I understand, and honestly, that would be me.
Yeah, probably that whole strip right there. Yeah, it would be you.
That is, we own it. There's two of us and the post office. The
Right.
challenge is, Michael, that half of the stuff feeding our building already is underground and half of it is not.
Okay.
So presumably you've spent some time in this alley, and I'm sorry if you've had to give up any fraction of your life to do that. But between 72nd and the north end of the 7-Eleven there, that part is underground. So they've already done partial undergrounding. So 3 of our tenants are on underground lines. 3 of us are on overhead lines. And it feeds 2 to 3 different trunk systems. It's not uncommon, even if there's some sort of a electrical interruption, half of my business will have power and half of it won't. Because part of it actually comes from, if you look at your schematic that's on the screen where it says 4-foot fence, and then you follow that almost to the end of the drawing where the green line is in the 3 circles.
Yes.
Half of my power actually comes from that pole that's right there.
Okay, like
Half of my power comes from 72nd. The system is not completely looped. And when you do that, when you underground that north section to deal with this new project, you're going to still have an incomplete looped system, which also may, quite frankly, impact this project. It's truly one that until you get into it, nobody's fully sure. It's just
technically they'd have to go back up the pole and to the existing overheads. And like he said, we'll be looking at this as a capital improvement project here soon and see what we can do. And we know this part of town, yeah, it's the overhead utilities are a problem. And I know I live in the country, so I get my power outage. Though right near me is all underground, but some of the other lines go down, and then, yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And maybe this kicks back to Heath. When you talk about widening for ingress and egress, are you widening the whole alley or just at this project?
Thank you, Dino. We will be widening for this project, so only along their property. And this really is because we understand that this is essentially their drive into and out of the parking lot. And so we wanted to make sure that this had the safe passage. So a future CIP of potentially looking at widening south of this project, that would be at another time. But I know that there's space constraints down where we get to the back of your house or your business. So
Okay.
we will have to look at that. But this project is widening, and particularly widening on the west side of the alley. So we're not expanding over further on the west side of the alley. They'll be expanding the east side of the alley, but the west side of their project.
Got it. Well, let me give you food for thought. You're a traffic engineer. I'm not. But let me tell you what happens. People in a hurry, because everybody's in a hurry all the time, coming southbound down Lowell. They make a right on 73rd, go down 73rd, come blasting through the alley from south to north, even though this is supposedly a north flowing alley. Once you get past the post office there, where you have the city lot to the south that doesn't quite align with the exit to our property, though it's marked, one way, wrong way, do not enter, arrows, everything. They come down around, come into my property, through the alley, the wrong direction, come flying through the lot the wrong way, go blasting out, either onto Meade or 72nd, and then take 72nd eastbound, all so that they don't have to finish coming down Lowell, go through the light, and make a right-hand turn at the light. My concern becomes, I understand the safety for this project. How do you not let that being improved like that become an even more attractive nuisance than it is for that type of behavior?
So by now energizing this corner and having more people, having more vehicles there, we would hope to see that, those that are using this as a cut through, because it felt like it was less stressful than just continuing south on Lowell to take a right at 72nd, that it doesn't feel like it is a shortcut anymore. Currently, with no businesses operating out of this corner, it can feel like it's more underused. So by introducing more activity here, there's going to be more friction. And so I hope to see that people do not choose to do that. But we're really going to have to look at it. And again, I'm taking all of this down, and we'll see what we can do to try to discourage traffic, especially cut through traffic, but to try to keep speeds down in the 15 mile an hour or, more alley scale of speeds.
It's posted at 10, actually.
Yeah.
But whatever you can do to induce stress in that alley to the drivers, you have my support.
Thank you.
Put those things that'll pop their tires if they go the wrong way.
Right. Well, thank you, Dino, for all of your observations and continuing to be a voice in your neighborhood. I mean,
it's not just, I know I sound like a cantankerous old man. I'm not trying to be. If we're going to do this, the council's already made their decision. Now we're down to just design. Let's get it right so that it takes care of not just this one corner, but sets the rest of that spine up for success. We can only do so much on our property. We can only make so many repairs. The alley is 100% the city's. I can even show you where the pin is that delineates where our property ends, the post office begins, the city begins. Like it's a challenge. And introducing a semi-dense project like this of elderly citizens, I do worry about it being safe to go in and out. Plain and simple. Because I just see it. It's, you know, you get these young bucks going into the 7-Eleven for cigarettes, beer, milk, lottery tickets. They're in a hurry. They don't care. They come flying out on their cell phones and they come blasting through that alley. You know, stop sign, who cares about that? And just go and take whatever. We need to ensure that as people are coming in to access this senior apartment complex, you know, you don't have your grandmother, for instance, making a left-hand turn in and some youngster come flying out of the alley, you know, when she was clearly in the right with the left, but they're coming so fast and so out of control that they hit her. And it's real close. It's a different kind of crazy than the days of when there were 100 postal vehicles in and out of there all day long. So, are you going to be narrowing Lowell?
Well, yes, in a way. So as the development team described in their presentation, we will be creating a bulb out at the southwest corner of 73rd and Lowell to match what's happening and the built condition on the northwest corner. And when we do that, we will use that second southbound lane as a parking lane down towards the access point into that city lot and the Electric City buildings. And so in a way, we are narrowing it down. And then as you have seen 2 summers ago, the city resurfaced Lowell Boulevard south of 72nd. And we took that as an opportunity to create the second southbound lane approaching 72nd to turn it into a right lane must turn right only. So in a way, we have tried to narrow it down to keep Lowell a 1-lane southbound, 1-lane northbound roadway.
Fantastic. It needs it. That's the only spot between 104th and I think it's 19th down there by Sloan's Lake. That's the only spot where there's more than 1 lane in each direction.
Correct. So what we have not done is gotten rid of the right turn lane that for the northbound portion. So we will, when we look at resurfacing at a future CIP project or streets resurfacing project, we will look at restriping for the northbound. But this project will establish the parking on the west side of Lowell.
Great. I've seen the schedule. I got it from Stephanie Trawler the other day. I reached out to her. So I'm happy to see that there's finally a schedule to get rid of the derelict buildings. I'm thrilled that the fencing is around them too. That's actually calmed a lot of stuff. Where are you guys in the environmental cleanup?
Hey, Dino, it's Molly Taylor jumping in.
Hi, Molly.
I covered this right, I think, as you were signing on. And so welcome, and let me go back. The environmental cleanup has been contracted. We are in the process of finalizing a contract with the group that will perform the asbestos abatement and the demolition. Right now, they will work through May and June to get that work performed and get the buildings down. As soon as they complete that work, the city will have the soils test performed. And if necessary, we will do soils remediation to make sure that the site is clean to the standard of our commitment to the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. We anticipate all of it being done probably by August. I think we're putting September on the sign to give us wiggle room because we continue to need wiggle room.
Yes, this has been a wiggly project. Are you guys looking at an expansion of this project on the other side of the Penguin Building?
Ollie, again, right now we are still holding that property to make sure that we are successful with this property. And we are using the Harris Park plan and this work to inform the planning for the property on the south side of the Penguin Building.
Okay. That's all I have. It's radically different from what we saw a year ago, and it's significantly better.
Great. Well, thank you, Dina. I appreciate you providing comments and again, just giving us that sort of insight that only, a property owner who is here every day and engaging with this area can provide. That's very helpful. And I'm glad that, you've kind of seen this project grow. Again, we're sort of just at the beginning of this process. So you'll see some more refinements by the end product, but I think it's in quite good shape for this stage. And that is thanks to a lot of the great input that we got from the community way back, last, I guess, over a year ago now, at that first meeting to discuss the sort of level project.
We went to a meeting on Wednesday and the world was closed by Friday.
It literally was the last neighborhood meeting that we held in person. So yeah, it definitely threw a wrench in a lot of things on our end, but we're all excited that this project has kind of kept moving, even though we had a few hiccups to be expected with all those closures and whatnot. So again, appreciate you coming tonight. So we had someone to chat with as well. We had a lighter attendance than I think we anticipated.
I think everybody's just burned out on everything. Honestly. Yeah. What sort of income level is this going to settle at? Maybe that's a question for Arturo. Is it restricted? Is it?
Thank you for all the comments. I gotta think in my head real quick, but there's I believe we have 5 units of 50% AMI and below, and then the rest of them we are earmarking to rent them out at about $1,200 for a single bedroom unit and $1,400 for a 2-bedroom unit. So there's minimal restrictions on them.
Okay. And the 5 that are restricted, is it technically the same rent but with a voucher, or how does that work these days?
Yeah, we don't have vouchers in the project right now. We'd have to work with an agency that has vouchers, whether it's a state and or local housing authority. But right now, that's just, there's no vouchers in the project right now.
No, I mean, I know that Section 8 is not, we're building Section 8 housing. Section 8 is now a voucher you take with you to a qualified property. Is that how those 5 are going to work?
No, they're the units will be restricted to people a certain income level, so there is no voucher that people will be coming with unless they happen to be coming with them. We can still accept them, but to get the lower restricted units, there's no requirements for someone to have a voucher.
Okay, that makes sense.
I hope so.
And are those in perpetuity or?
I might come on Kim or Yvette here really quick. I can't remember the restrictions on those units for how long the use restriction lasts.
Hi, this is Yvette. So it'll really depend on the amount of funding that goes in from each source. But we normally look on a project this size anywhere from around 15 years of restrictions for the income requirements.
Okay. It's much improved. Is this community room, what is its use supposed to be?
So the use is just a community space for the residents to, do things they'd like, gatherings, social events. I also like that we have an outside courtyard that kind of does the same thing. It has an outdoor space towards the west side of the building there, but it's really just a resident community space is our intended use right now. We might be able to consider using it for other reasons, but that's the intent at this point. I don't know if Christopher would like to add anything to that too from the design end and what we've accomplished on that end to date.
Thanks, Arturo. Yeah, we're trying to leave it fairly open as a flex space. There is a kitchen and a series of restrooms, but other than that, it's an open space that can accommodate a variety of uses.
Okay, but where I'm getting at is in the earlier meetings, et cetera, people were talking about places where artists could go and meet and that. This is a space for the residents, period.
That's the intended use of the space.
Good. That's as it should be. I never thought that people should be, renting space from the outside because it was a city funded project. This is these people's home. So what is the projected timeline of build?
Just Arturo here, with the demo scheduled to be done at the end of June, we hope to break ground later this fall. We have a number of steps to move forward to get to that point, but our goal is to try to break ground this fall.
And move-in date of?
Thanks for the comment. We haven't gotten that far. We're still in schematic design at this point. So it's hard to project a move-in date at this time.
Okay. And
this is Young Cho, and I was just going to add that if we're able to break ground this year, sometime in the fall, potentially in the late fall, we don't really have a confirmation as to what the construction period may be, but we're anticipating that it's going to be less than a year. So, or around a year. So I think that in 2022, before the end of the year, hopefully this project is completed and open, and we'll have very happy residents who are now neighbors in this area.
Okay, and it's going to be all brick facade all the way around.
The brick is going to be really the predominant material, and it's going to really reinforce the character of Lowell. And the brick will be used really on all the exterior sides. The only area where, to be cost effective, we may we're anticipating a transition from brick to a low maintenance cement fiberboard really is just on the inside of the courtyard, as you see in this rendering.
Just whatever you choose, do me a favor and make it look a lot better than the crap that they're building by Wishbone off of 96th and Federal. You can see the poor construction, period.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we really have some really great bones, and because of the commitment of the city and also CRHDC to really establish a gateway and a strong sense of community and to invest in the right materials. I mean, brick is a terrific material, and obviously we will craft it and design it so that we can really bring out, the wonderful character of the brick. So I think it's really going to be a quality project with the right material, with the right scale and the right detail. So we're very excited.
It's a lot better. We've seen a lot of different iterations of things, even well before Arturo and his team got involved. One had 5 stories of mega dense 10% AMI housing that would only work if you took the alley and bisected it and closed it off. And this seems to work. Maybe some, as you get into it, some nice awnings over those windows to kind of complement, give a little razzle dazzle, but it looks a lot like what was built 1 block to the north. And it's just a radical shift from what we started out with, and it's nice to see.
Well, we really appreciate your earlier comments, and I personally doubly appreciate your comments tonight. We did take those feedback to heart and update, modify, burnish, polish, the design to respond to. I thought that were really good critical comments, and I think between the city's commitment and their comments and the neighborhood comments, and also CRHDC comments, I think we've really created something that is going to be a community asset. It's going to enrich the neighborhood and do its job, which really is to, begin this transition to help emerge, the emergence of this neighborhood, into something that's finer, that's better, and begin to really create the foundation, the gateway for things to come, right? And especially the development of the 73rd, so that it can really be something that the neighborhood and the city can be proud of. So we're very excited that I think we got this right. With lots of different comments and lots of different iterations. And there were a lot of iterations. I think we got this right. So we're really excited.
I'm pleased with what I see. I'm still not thrilled that it's a non-owned. I just don't think we need more apartments in the area, irrespective of the type they are. Condos, townhomes, but that's not going to be. The city council gave the direction, everything's in place. This is something that I think we can live with, and I do see a reflection of everything that was said at all the various meetings in there. Everything from Debbie's elevator to the brownstone walk up, to pulling away from the alley, to paying attention to safety, watching height densities. I think you did listen. You do nice work.
Thank you. Thank you for being engaged and giving us the important information we needed. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll mute and let our second attendee talk.
Thank you, Dino. Yes, Gary Shea, thank you for joining us tonight. We already went through the presentation, but we can let you speak. Jennifer, if you could unmute or allow Mr. Shea to unmute himself. I'll try, Gary, to get to stop making you too sick. Here's a sort of site plan, and then I can go to the elevations as well if you'd like.
Mr. Shea, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
Okay, thank you. I apologize that I was late getting logged in here. The first question was, has the ODP been submitted yet?
Yes, Gary. So this is it's been submitted, and we've done one round of review on it, and so that's what brings us to the neighborhood meeting stage tonight to gather community feedback. So yes, it's been submitted. These sort of slides are based on that first submittal.
Okay. Do you know when it'll go before council? Or it goes to planning commission first, correct?
No. So this is administratively approvable. It's already gone to council to get the, it's been rezoned and the preliminary development plan has been approved. So now we're just dealing with the sort of site planning and architecture and landscape. And so that'll actually be able to be administratively approved once once all of the city requirements are met.
So it won't go back before council for the ODP?
Correct.
So this is the last opportunity then for citizens to have any input?
Yes, sir. Gary, do you have any other questions or comments on it? I can, saw you missed the presentation, but I can flip through the sort of renderings if you'd like.
I guess the other concern, and this was from the Penguin building, by completing this project here, this will eliminate one of the accesses off of Lowell they have to their parking lot. The Penguin building doesn't have direct access. I'm kind of surprised too that they're not attending this evening. They don't have direct access to their parking lot directly in front of their building off of Lowell, and this project will close off the north entrance there that their patrons, customers access through. Any thoughts to correct that for them, that business?
Yeah, Gary, we actually have Heath Klein, our traffic engineer, on the line. I know that we have been in communication with Penny on that. Heath, do you have any other details that you could add?
Just thank you, Gary, for bringing that up. The city understands that we are eliminating that northern access, but the Penguin building will have access from the southern access point from Lowell into the city parking lot there on the north side of Electric City and the Penguin building. So yes, we may need to work with her on potential restriping and allowing her patrons to be able to safely park and then back out and go back down to get onto Lowell. But we have been working with her, and it is a known issue.
Okay, if the property south of the Penguin building eventually develops then too, that would close off that southern access for her parking lot on the east side of her building, directly off of Lowell. Any thoughts or considerations to address that now, or just wait?
Since there is no active development on the south side of that, we don't have a plan, in place, other than guaranteeing that we will be able to provide that building access. So whatever comes in on the south side, we will either work with them to provide access to that, guaranteeing an access easement or something, but we will be working to maintain. We will not provide, not eliminate access to her parking areas. So whatever we do south of her property, we will be maintaining access to hers.
Okay. I don't know if you could go back to the site plan again. So they're going to eliminate the far right-hand lane, the far west lane on Lowell, and make that into parking, or push the sidewalk out into that area.
So Gary, this is Heath Klein again. So we are going to eliminate that. So essentially from 73rd South, there's 2 southbound lanes on Lowell. And thank you, Nathan, for illustrating that. And this project will construct a bulb out at the intersection, which will essentially mirror the existing bulb out that's at the northwest corner. And then by doing that, it's bringing that curb line out, and we will eliminate the second southbound lane and allow parking there along this frontage. And then south of this property, it'll start to transition into that right lane must turn right at 72nd Avenue.
Okay, well, I'm wondering if this creates a problem. And so I see, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, roughly 5 or 6 parking spaces there on Lowell in front of the new housing project there. But then it's going to transition south of that. Is there anything that will prevent the people, say patrons that are going to the Penguin Building, anything to prevent them from going ahead and just extending that parking on down Lowell?
So right now, we're going to, with this project, we'll end the striping and it'll be clear that there isn't parking south of this, because what we wanted was the ability for users of the city parking lot or those going to the Penguin Building to be able to turn into that access there just on the north side of the electric shop. So right now we don't plan on continuing the parking, but that is an option. So just as you kind of had mentioned on providing access to the Penguin Building, if something were to redevelop, we are looking to continue the idea of parallel parking further south, always keeping a right turn lane onto 72nd. So somewhere essentially from the existing drive access into the city lot south, the city sees that as always remaining as a right lane or right turn lane. But north of that, we could start entertaining the idea of additional parking. But the streetscape, as shown on the plan that we're seeing here, is not, at this point, I don't believe it's going to be carried all the way down to the city parking lot. And so parallel parking directly in front of the Penguin Building may prove kind of difficult, especially if you have a passenger, because of the existing street tree and landscaping that's there.
Okay, and I know that this configuration is significantly different. The building configuration is significantly different than what we'd seen the past year or so. How many units total now?
This is Christopher. I'm with Studio Completiva. I'm the project manager. There are 17 total units.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I already spoke. I guess it would. Hi, my name is Christopher Keast. I'm with Studio Completiva. I'm the project manager on Harris Park. There are 17 total units.
Okay. And any adjustments to the parking? I see that there's kind of a courtyard area there directly to the west of the southern end of those units. Did just one parking space per unit now? Is that, or are we less?
That's correct. There are 17 spaces, 2 of which are ADA accessible. And there are 4 spaces on street along Lowell Boulevard.
Are those going to be designated or assigned parking per each unit?
I believe they're unassigned.
Unassigned. Okay. Currently, when we get back off of the COVID restrictions, the Joyful Ballroom too has been having overflow parking that has gone up into the post office parking lot and sometimes around the Penguin Building. I guess there's a concern too that overflow parking, seeing open undesignated parking spaces there, that they would fill up those spots. Anything to address that?
So Gary, this is Heath Klein, City of Westminster again. Those spaces will be unmarked, but similar to what happens on the north side of 73rd, those parallel parkings are signed that the high school for Hidden Lake students shall not park there. So we'll have similar signage there, but nothing really to prevent the other businesses or other people using those spaces at this time. It's just we need to provide the off street or out. We needed to provide parking for the visitors of this. And so we are doing that by allowing these 4 or 5 spaces on Lowell Boulevard. But at this point, it is not intended to restrict them only to this building. Just real similar to most subdivisions and public parking on right-of-way. It is not reserved.
Okay. Just shift gears and go back to the soil contamination and the mitigation system that they've got planned. Now that these look like 2 separate buildings, then too, I apologize, I wasn't able. Was any of that mitigation addressed in any of your presentation this evening?
Hey, Gary, this is Molly Taylor from Economic Development. We did not actually speak to the vapor mitigation in the presentation this evening. We did speak a little bit to the voluntary cleanup plan and the scheduling for that. I would let Studio Completiva speak to contracting to have vapor mitigation installed in the construction.
This is Christopher again. Yes, as part of the requirements for the ODP, we are required to provide a vapor mitigation system, and we have begun the conversation with the designer. We have a team in place.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, that mitigation system will require external venting.
That's correct.
Okay, and will there be 2 systems for each separate structure?
Our plan right now accounts for 1 system. So there essentially there are 2 spaces there that you see. They are connected, so there would be 1 fan and 1 vent. That's what the design consists of at this moment.
Okay, and any idea where those vents would be located?
Yeah, we're thinking in that crook between the 2 buildings, on the southwest corner, right there where the hand is.
Okay, and just a single vent for the system?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and then the monitoring wells. I see that there's some additional ones that have been installed here within the last year, maybe even the last months, and those mainly lie in the parking area there. Those will remain in place and accessible?
Hey, Gary, it's Molly Taylor again. We have been in contact with CGRS, the company that is performing the groundwater monitoring, and they will, starting I believe in June, apply for a Tier 4 voluntary closure of all wells on the site. They will come in right after the site cleanup and they will remove all the wells.
Okay, just remove the wells, or do they cap and seal them so that none of the remaining product can vent up through the soil?
I will have to check to confirm that for you. I don't want to give you the wrong answer. It's my understanding that they will remove all of the wells that are in the construction area on the actual physical site. They may keep a few wells in the public right-of-way, as they have on the north side of West 73rd Avenue.
Okay. The other concern is the that chemical treatment that they had used and put in mainly on the north east corner of the property. I don't believe any of those. They might have been just sealed with regular dirt, but will any of those? Is there concern that those need to be sealed off or addressed so that doesn't vent into the living areas?
I can pass the question along to them for you, Gary.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think that's all I have for now. If Dino has another question,
I can answer Penny's parking question. You talked about cutting off her access on the north side of the Penguin building there. It's historical. I don't believe that her property has ever actually had its own parking lot access. And let me tell you why. The buildings that were torn down on either side had multiple owners. I think there were as many as 13 owners at one point in time on Lowell, from where the blue line is down to where the 7-Eleven is. And the way that it was all accessed is you came in a north side driveway. It was one way, and you headed to the south, and you see the angle head-in parking now in front of the yoga studio in there. What is it, Serenity or whatever Marnie's business is called there. And it was one serving all of those buildings, and then there was one outlet pretty much about where the outlet is by Electric City. And since there's a bunch of city staff here, I'm going to just say it. The illegal event center that's in that building on the south side of Eric there, that is operating without a license and is the one actually parking everywhere, not my tenant. But it served all of them, and it was head-in angled parking up against all the businesses all the way down the row on the west side where the actual buildings are. And then there was angled head-in parking all the way down with the heads of the cars going into Lowell. Lowell got widened and the parking lot got narrowed at the same time when they redid 72nd and tapered it up to 73rd there for the streetscaping with those boxes. That's why you have those weird parallel parking spots adjacent to the coffin box planters on Lowell, because there was not enough room to maintain angle parking that pointed towards Lowell, but the spaces were still needed. So I don't think that any of that has ever had its own actual ingress and egress, but it was always shared on either side, one in, one out, and it served everybody.
Great, thank you, Dino. Appreciate that historical knowledge. Gary or Dino, do either of you have any other comments to or questions that you'd like us to address this evening?
Yeah, real quick, Nathan. I know Penny, they were kind of concerned. It would be the northeast corner of their building. They wondered if that was going to be completely blocked off, or if there would actually be, if you could physically walk from basically their parking lot through the property that way, or if it was sealed off tight.
Chris, could you answer that question from Gary?
There is you can see on the bottom in blue there is an 8-foot tall wood fence that completely blocks access from Lowell or the alley through the site.
Okay. I see the blue line goes all the way through. Will that 8-foot fence be right up against the Penguin building then also?
I'm not sure what the clearance is. There is a designated, we can't zoom in on it, but there's a designated clearance east to west that we were asked to maintain, which we have, but we are right on the property line.
Okay. Well, the only other concern is if an 8-foot fence is put up against Marnie's building, then you've got a little bit of space in between the fence and her building that is going to be kind of a maintenance nightmare, you know, for weeds and trash and whatever else. And I don't know too. I thought from previous meetings that the building sits on a 0 lot line on that north end.
On the north end?
I believe that's what it said on the Penguin building, but you guys would know better. The concern would be just if there's a space there that's fenced off, but no access to it or limited access, you know, for trash and weeds and just a maintenance nightmare.
Sure. The 8-foot fence was designated during the PDP process. I'm not sure. I don't have the history on that. Nathan, I'm not sure if you can speak to that.
I don't recall that from the PDP meeting as well. I don't think that the height of it was something discussed. I don't know if Molly has any recollection of that. If you know why the 8-foot height was decided over more of a typical 6-foot for this type of fencing. But Gary, I definitely appreciate your comment about you know, trash buildup. I know a lot of scenarios with small gaps where trash and weeds will grow. So that is duly noted, and you know, I think that we can work with Penny and just to see if, you know, if stopping that fence and tying into her building is preferable, or what. It's kind of a strange area. And we had to do the applicant team had to do some extra survey work just to figure out where everything was sitting. So we'll definitely note that and coordinate with her on what the sort of best outcome is there.
Okay, along the lines, I was just thinking now, the general topography of the property there, the natural drainage that's there right now kind of goes from the northeast corner down to the southwest. By hard coating all these surfaces and then also the roof coverings and everything too, is there considerations for the drainage, or will that all dump out that southwest corner there, right on the back, well, in the alley and next to Penny's property?
That's a good question. We actually, Chris presented a bit about the sort of overall stormwater program, which is actually pretty highly sophisticated. So Chris, do you want to sort of
Sure,
go over that?
I can recap that. The building on the left, the 1-bedroom units in the community room, we have water running off into a series of planters along Lowell Boulevard that daisy chain and then feed into a stormwater system off towards Lowell. The remaining water on that building feeds into the lawn in the middle of the project right there before traveling towards 73rd to an inlet on the northwest corner of the property. And all the precipitation falling on the 2-bedroom units, which are that smaller building that's rotated, those will feed into a rain garden and planting area before feeding into that same water inlet on the northwest corner. Anything falling on that parking lot, the slope does feed towards that southwest corner.
Okay, and then currently now I believe that the alley is paved. Any improvements there or any access to drainage there? I mean, you know, when we really get the downpours, I guess I'm just concerned about flooding or that to wash out property, or to push it down into the post office property, which is even lower.
Nathan, I defer to the city. I don't know what improvements there are planned for the alley.
Gary, this is Heath Klein, City Transportation Engineer again. So you did miss at the very beginning, this project will be widening the alley on the east side of the alley. So essentially the west side of their property line. And so the alley asphalt width will be 20 foot wide to safely have a car northbound and southbound be able to use the alley to get into and out of the parking lot. And the drainage will be directed down towards and onto the alley. But as this is being designed, there is some water quality aspects. So in a way, it will hold back some of that. But yes, in a large storm event, the water will be directed to the alley and then south from there.
Okay, and what would be the next storm sewer or access point for that runoff then? Is it down the alley down on 72nd, or would it have to make its way out to Meade Street, or where eventually would that runoff get into the storm sewer?
Yeah, and I can answer that. This is Nathan Inc. With the city of Westminster. I do the stormwater and drainage reviews. There is an inlet just kind of south of this, but where Heath has kind of mentioned previously in the meeting that we're looking at the design of what's going on here with the alley extension, as well as trying to look at the future and hopefully secure some funding to take that project further south. With both of these, we're both taking the time to sort of take an effort to look at where those flows are going and how to best accommodate it with those projects, with this future project or this potential project here. They're taking the efforts to try to take most of their stormwater, that's running off the north of the property directly to that inlet. And providing water quality, and as well as shifting a lot of those flows from the roofs to Lowell Boulevard. So this design has ultimately reduced that flow kind of going towards the alley as much as we possibly could, with the flooding concerns in mind. The Penguin building, has experienced, some heavy flows in the past, and I think that through this design effort with the engineer on board here, we're going to try to come up with a solution that definitely improves what's going on out there, even during those major events. And then, taking every effort in the future that as we address some of the other concerns that have been mentioned tonight, that, we try to wrap that all up into, our best effort to continue this improvement further south and take it all the way onto the terminus there.
Okay. Is there a storm drain in the alley, or does it have to make it down to 72nd before it would hit the storm drain?
It does have to make it all the way down to 72nd at this time. Most of that grade point, the grade break is really kind of at the northern portion of the alley, right at 73rd, and then everything kind of rushes down there. But again, with as much flows as these guys are diverting directly to other systems and away from that alley, their contribution to those historic floods, or those those floods that you've experienced in the last how many every years living or working or owning property down there. There's going to be less runoff from this development, and as we see other developments occur in this area, I'm really hoping that we can really improve everything going on, as we progress the stormwater program.
Okay. Well, and this might be a question for Dino then, if historically too, when we've had the real significant downpours, if he's ever experienced any flooding in his building there from any water coming down the alley.
Not in the last 25 years. The only flooding we've experienced in recent years is when a line was improperly jumped during a repair on 72nd, and it flooded the basement under the donut shop. But to answer all the questions, and Heath, you're not 100% correct on the stormwater. It doesn't actually go quite into 72nd. Ultimately, it does get there. The only outflow for the stormwater is, I don't know, 10 to 15 feet north of 72nd, and it kind of straddles the alley and the 7-Eleven, which is why there's like a 40-foot wide ingress egress there coming off of 72nd. Years ago, there was actually a landscaped median separating the 7-Eleven, and before that it was a service station that was torn down to make way for the 7-Eleven. But separating that property from the alley, that did create lots and lots of flooding issues because it caused flow to go the wrong way. There was no outlet. It was an extraordinary feat when they redid all of that. But what happens when they did redo that part of 72nd, they came up the alley and there was a major water issue. It pooled mostly on the 7-Eleven side, but it would back up, and it would back up into the little jut out part of the post office on the the southeast part of the back of it, coming up against our property. So what the city did, and Dave Downing was quite instrumental in this, as I recall, it slopes away from our building. Our ownership ends where those bollards are, only like 8 inches off of the back of our building. It doesn't crown anymore, but it slopes, and then on the east side of the alley from the city's lot down is a drain pan, and the drain pan carries everything. We redid our parking lot. The alley was redone so that everything flows to that drain pan through the alley and then down right into that storm sewer. It works fantastically. Then they had to add a channel to carry it from the post office over and bring their part into there. To be perfectly honest, nothing is addressed north of that. It's going to melt in the undeveloped parts. It's going to go down into the soil. Everywhere else, it just finds a low point in pools or eventually dissipates or will make its way into that channel. And then into the storm sewer. So we don't flood because that was done. Whether it needs to be extended all the way to this project, I'm not an engineer. But I will tell you that the alley does rise pretty significantly from 72nd to 73rd. There's more elevation change than actually meets the eye. It's pretty stunning, actually. That's why you have those low spots in the post office there. They need built up. They're just out of grade. So of course you're going to get pooling there. I don't know if that answers the question or muddies it.
Thank you, Dino. Heath Klein. Again, that does help. So, and that would be part of, if we start to look at a CIP project to improve the alley, we would look to potentially extend that valley pan that carries the stormwater down to that inlet just on the north side of the drive entrance into the alley / 7-Eleven. So I appreciate you bringing that up and helping to answer Gary's question as to where that water is going. Thank you.
I'll tell you, the only time it's ever really a problem is if we get a weird, wonky winter, not a 30-inch snow like we just had, which I wouldn't mind another one, but because that one melted out so fast. But if you get a storm where you get a lot of ice dams and ice building up, as the traffic goes in and out of there, that storm drain tends to get blocked and impacted by the snow that forms with ice dams. And, you get these guys with their big trucks and they throw a blade on it and, they think they're Superman. But a lot of city trucks will go through there, and we're very grateful that they do, and that Joseph makes sure they have coffee, while they're out working all night, because they really do a great job. But if the people plowing in that, whether it's on 7-Eleven, guys just going through, or the city truck maybe making a pass through, if they impact that and then it gets really cold again, you'll get an ice dam around that drain. And when that happens, until it's warm enough to go out and chip out, you will get water that will disperse every direction just because the drain is blocked. And a couple of years ago, I had to get my kid that worked for me, and we went out and spent about a half hour to chip it out and rechannel it so we didn't have a flood. But those are rare, and they're man-caused.
And Dino, this is Nathan Enck again with the city. I'm relatively new. I'm a year in here, but I've actually got a few different sites, inlets around town that I've kind of isolated as problems, especially in the winter, for the very scenario that you raised. And I'm going to add this to my kind of watch list, just to drive by and investigate, and to have me jump out with the shovel and clear that off as needed. But yes, no, the only way that I can, find these nuisance flows and where these problems are, especially in the wintertime. People forget about stormwater in the wintertime, and it has a big impact. But this is how we get that out there, and how you get the word to us, and how I add it to a list. And, we try to make that a priority, or raise it up, or hit that with a project here or there, or just put an extra set of eyes on it. Because a lot of the times, like what you're describing, what it takes is somebody to be vigilant about where that drain is and how it sits in there. And if we could just go in there, boom, right after a quick storm and hit that, you're going to solve a whole lot of problems, and you're not going to create that ice dam. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. And I'm putting it on my board right now. And we're going to be doing drive-bys every once in a while. So don't be surprised if you see a car with a stormwater team sticker slapped on the side of it.
All right, great. Thank you, Nathan and Heath, for answering those questions. There was a chat question from Dino about the fencing height on the south property line. Our code does only allow a 6-foot fence, but Rosa with the architecture team is commenting that it may be a requirement based on the extra set of requirements placed on this building because of its affordable nature. So it's honestly something that we're going to have to flag and talk more about to see what that height ends up being. Are there any other, let's see if I'm checking the comments. I don't see any other chat comments, I don't believe. Are there any other comments or questions from Derry or Dino?
Yeah, Nathan, I've got just one last one there, and I apologize if I missed it, if I was late. The utilities that are on the east side of the alley, and they would be on the west side of this property here. There's telephone pedestals, some overhead electrical, I believe. Will that all be underground?
Yeah, so we did talk about that earlier, but I'll let Heath again talk about that a bit.
Thank you, Gary. Heath Klein again. So yes, this project is required to place the overhead utilities underground. But that will essentially be from the Penguin building or their southern property line north. So they will be placing that. It will not underground all of the overhead utilities south of this property.
Okay, and I imagine too, if that south property developed, that would be addressed at that time, that those would be undergrounded then.
It would be, but Dino had asked the same kind of question, and I am going to run it past the city engineer and see if we can't get a CIP project, so capital improvement project, for doing the undergrounding of all of those utilities that are running down there. So we can't use what is sometimes referred to as the Excel 1% funds solely for that project because there's so many secondary services off of those overhead lines. So those have to be paid by a separate fund. They cannot be paid out of the 1%. And so that will require the city to match in order to underground the overhead service from a building to the primary.
Okay. I'm just kind of curious too. I know that there was existing water taps on the property, but I don't know, and I've never seen anything too as far as sewer impacts. I know that these 17 units, is a significant increase over what commercial buildings were there before. Do you have an idea where the main sewer line is that they'll be tying into, and if that's got the capacity to service these 17 units?
Michael, can you or Nathan answer that question for Gary?
I saw that Michael unmuted, but I'm not hearing her. So I'm just going to, as far as capacity goes, they will have to do a utility report along with the submittal. And there's no concerns at this time that capacity is going to be an issue. As far as the location of that service, Chris, if you're still on, I think you probably, or Kyle, might have a better idea of where you're pulling your service from. But as far as capacity, that should not be a problem with the 17 units here that we're seeing.
This is Christopher. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's coming off of 73rd.
I believe that's correct. Yeah, if you look on the plan, I'm seeing the clean out there on the public sidewalk along 73rd. Yeah, right there. So that's the main service looks like coming in to feed those buildings, and so it's going to be coming off of 73rd there.
Just curious, do you know what size line that is?
I don't have that information off the top of my head, but I'd be happy to send you that information ASAP. If I pull that up now on this, I'll crash my system and not be able to talk to you. But I would be more than happy to provide that information here to you after this meeting.
Hey guys, this is Kyle Messmer with Martin Civil. The survey on that 8-inch line in 73rd has an 8-inch sanitary main.
Okay. Is there concern too? I know that area there generally under 73rd and north of 73rd is where the plume originated from. Is there concern by accessing that they'll expose that the contaminants that are in the soil there? And is there any concern about mitigation or protection when they do that?
Hey Gary, this is
Yeah.
Molly. I'm trying to capture your question. When they expose what would create access to contaminants?
Well, the plume, the diagrams I've seen of where that plume originated, and the extent that's under 73rd there that hasn't ever been addressed with the mitigation. When they access to tap into that sewer, it'll expose all of those contaminants in 73rd. I didn't know if there was any concerns or anything that's been done to address that.
I don't know if that is true. Again, I can do some checking when I'm getting your other question answered by CGRS. The plume is about 15 to 18 feet below ground.
Okay. Any idea what elevation the sewer line that they'll be tapping into is?
I would defer to the
Yeah, the sewer main in 73rd Avenue is about 6 feet deep.
Okay. I think that's all I've got. Thanks for taking the time to answer my questions.
Yeah, thank you, Gary, for coming and asking some great questions for us. All this input just from two of you has been fantastic. It is nice to see how engaged you both are in these projects, and helps us make better projects. So thank you for that. I guess with that, I don't see any other chat comments. I don't believe. Let me double check. Yeah. So I guess with that, Dino, do you have any other final comments or anything like that?
No. As somebody who's been quite a vociferous critic of this project, I have to say you guys have heard the criticisms that have come from the community and seem to make it something that does integrate to a much better extent than where we were. So I think it's going to be a lot better. Like I said, I think my concerns remain ones that are less this project, more about the remnants that will be left behind with the alley, et cetera. And hopefully, Heath, you're able to find money. And it's, I'll be perfectly honest. Do I feel the impact with what happens in that alley? Yes, that's a big lifeblood to our business. But whether we're there, somebody else is there, whatever, it's just something that has lingered now for almost 3 decades that needs to be finished. It gets frustrating when you see project after project after project of city money going into the former mall site, and how many times they've redone the median on 88th. And you can't get a couple 100 feet of utility completely underground and a system looped so that it stops failing after 30 years. This is going to address part of it. You know, let's not wait another 30 years. Let's just finish it regardless of who or what is going to go in there. But this is going to, I feel like the residents have a better shot of a better quality of life in the redesigned unit. So, Arturo, you guys have led a good team. Just make it nice.
Appreciate that, Dino, your comments.
Yes, thanks to both of you. You know, it's been an enlightening chat session for sure. So I do appreciate you both showing up tonight and giving us some very valuable feedback. So I've posted up contact info, Gary and Dino. I know that you both have these, but you know, for anyone watching the recording of tonight's meeting, if you have any questions related to development review process or the actual you know, project, you can email me or call me. Any questions related to the community development block grant requirements and program, and the project demolition and site cleanup, you can contact Molly there. And I will be posting both a recording of this meeting as well as some additional information onto the project webpage. And so if you use this link, you can get there. You can also just search for project status page for City of Westminster, and it'll come up in Google. And I'll be posting that hopefully within a week to get all the information up. So again, I really appreciate the both of you showing up tonight, and everybody have a pleasant evening.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.